Hi everyone, I'm Kathryn Rossati and I'm a middle grade and young adult author. And today I'm just going to introduce you to a little creative writing exercise you can do. Um, it's very simple and it's a good way to get ideas if you're stuck or if you've been given a writing prompt and not sure where to go with it. You don't necessarily have to write anything down. You can do if you want to, but that's your choice. So imagine for a moment if you have been given sort of a writing prompt, and the prompt is actually sort of me. Say the line you've been given as your prompt is an author was sitting in her room, and here I am sitting in my room. I'm actually sitting on my bed because I don't have any chairs that would be level with my laptop otherwise. Um, but if we take an author is sitting in her room, there's not really a story to that. It's a nice statement, but there's no story. But if we change one thing about that sentence, perhaps we just add one thing in, it can create a story and also sort of lots of questions that you can then use to follow on from that little bit of story. So if we go with an author was sitting in her room on her bed and the bed collapsed. Hopefully it won't, but it would be quite funny if it did. But fingers crossed it doesn't, now that I've said it. Um, but if that did happen, what other questions would pop into your mind after that? I mean, what would pop into my mind would be, why did the bed collapse? How did it collapse? Sort of what went wrong in the sort of bed frame to do that? What happened afterwards? What happened before? Um, and so we go from a simple statement to then adding one little bit in. And how we add it in is very simple because we just think, what if? And there are many ifs that can happen in any sort of scenario, not just the bed collapsing. Um, but from that, then we have all these further questions that can then carry the story forward even more as we answer them. So let's try a sort of a different thing that might happen. So say an author was sitting in her room and all the bookshelves over here, all the books on them started floating and sort of swelled up and were floating on my head. Well, I'd have a lot of questions about why that happened. I mean, these things are very good if you're sort of wanting a sort of fantasy or magical edge to your story. But there are plenty of things sort of that can happen in everyday life. I mean, my window's just over this side. I could have a bird sort of fly into the window, which would be terrible. But, I would then, if I was a character, or like as a person, I would do it anyway. But well, in the context of creative writing, as a character, I'd want to go investigate that and find out why and what happened. So the two things that sort of work for this method, this what if method that I sort of call it, are the words what if, and then you have the why part. So the what if is simply you change that little thing in the scenario, and then the why, uh, all the why questions that happen afterwards. And so there we go. That's just how you can build a story very simply from just changing one thing about a writing prompt or a scenario, or perhaps you might even be looking at a photograph that's taking your eye. Um, Anything that you sort of start off with as a writing prompt, you can build from by asking these simple questions. There is a little worksheet that I've got, well, sort of an explanation sheet that goes through this method in a little bit more depth. Um, so do give that a little read. But I hope you enjoyed this sort of little short creative writing exercise, and thank you for watching. Bye.